It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of April 25th, 1997. We've got, I don't know right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump on into it, and we'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is Tommy Lee Jones and Anne Heche in the disaster film Volcano. Good lord, that was horribly edited. It shows you every single plot point that goes on in the movie. Everything that they show you in there literally is everything that happens in the movie. And it just makes no sense whatsoever. It's a film that had so much potential to it. I mean, it is an interesting idea, like to have an active volcano in a big major metropolitan city like Los Angeles, or something like even in New York. But here it's in Los Angeles, and that could be a really cool idea, even for a dumb disaster movie. That's a solid idea. But if you have a trailer like that pretty much shows you everything that happens in the movie, and then sells you on one of the worst taglines ever, then you know that this movie is dead on arrival. And sure enough, it is indeed dead on arrival. I mean, it pretty much shows you everything in that one trailer, and it's not an engaging film whatsoever. You don't like any of these characters. The volcano scenes are not that good, interesting to watch. I mean, yeah, it looks like it's there, but at the same time, Dante's Peak had better visual effects than anything in this movie. And this movie just feels like it feels like they didn't know what else to do after they sold the film on a volcano in Los Angeles. It's like they sold it to Fox like that, and then they said, "Okay, what else you got?" And then they were just like, "Oh shit, we don't have anything else here." Yeah, it's a bad movie, man. It's a really terrible movie, and as much as I didn't like Dante's Peak, I give you Dante's Peak credit because you could tell that there was actual practical effects in there, and they did a good job of meshing any CG they had to use with the practical effects in that movie. Here, the effects look nice, but everything else about it is just so uninspired. You don't like any of these characters. I mean, honestly, like I said before, you could watch the trailer and see that pretty much everything that was in the trailer is in the movie, and even then, it's not that interesting of a film. Like, this was a film that was hyped up so much. Like, they put this trailer in front of the biggest movie of the previous year, Independence Day, hoping that they can get the buzz going on it, and just didn't work. Just did not work in the end. Such a terrible, terrible movie this is. And luckily, Tommy Lee Jones had a comeback later on in 1997 with a much better film, but we'll get to that one once we get to the summertime. That's Volcano, so let's go ahead and move on to a much better movie that came out. This is Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion. You know, watching this movie again, I was trying to figure out why this movie is so funny. Why is this movie has had this long-lasting longevity to it after all these years? And then I realized of who it's directed by, David Merkin. Now, that's a name that you may not know by namesake, but you have definitely seen some stuff that he's involved in. He's worked on stuff like The Simpsons during its peak years. He worked on The Critic. He also directed a really good movie that came out after this, Heartbreakers, with Sigourney Weaver, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and Ray Liotta. And yeah, now I know why this movie is still as hilarious. It's more hilarious than I ever thought it would be because it's directed by David Merkin, and David Merkin's such a great comedy writer and director. And you also have the writing of Robin Schiff, who also works for The Groundlings. She's also written for a number of shows. She was a producer on Party of Five. She worked on several shows that didn't last very long. She did the series version of Working Girl. She did Princesses with Fran Drescher before she did The Nanny. The Delta Burke show that she did after she left Designing Women. I mean, she's but notably, she comes from The Groundlings, and The Groundlings have brought some very talented people. Have brought out some very talented people from that comedy troupe, and again, the movie really the more I think about it, the movie works because of Mira Sorvino and Lisa Kudrow. Like, you had these two women who are perfectly casted in this. They share a lot of really good chemistry together. They're both very funny together. The writing is just top notch, and a cast that also includes Janeane Garofalo, Alan Cumming, Cameron Manheim from The Practice. I mean, the pieces all came together so well in this movie. It's such a very solidly made film that even people who don't usually go to chick flicks like this, like me, can actually find a lot to really appreciate from it. I mean, I guarantee you that the people that made Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar took a lot of inspiration from this when they made that movie, because you definitely get a sense that that Barb and Star would be older versions of the characters of Romy and Michelle in this particular film. The setups they have in here are kind of very unique in the very same way, and the movie is just really funny. It's a really funny film, a clever idea overall. In fact, this is actually the second high school reunion comedy that came out in the last month from Disney, which also gave us Grosse Point Blank, which is a terrific film. And what more do I have to say about it, man? This is just such a funny movie. Well done. It's very funny. Great direction all around. Great casting. I mean, it's a classic. It's a cult classic for a good reason. It's a very funny film. It still holds up after all these years, man. It's still a really funny film, and I can't recommend it enough. Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion. If you haven't seen it, see it. You will not be disappointed by it. So, with that said, let us move on to the next movie, and that is Shiloh. So this is, of course, based off the best-selling book of the same name. And I read this book a lot during my time in high school, in pretty much elementary school, middle school. At one point, we ended up reading this book on a number of occasions, and I never really understood why it has that longevity to it, but watching it in the last couple of months, I've realized that this is a film that definitely has held up for a number of reasons. I mean, it definitely can be relevant to to the way we are now. We always have to have our spirit, like a little service animal with us, and for emotional support and all that type of stuff. And this is a very heartfelt story. You have this beagle who's been abused by this owner, and he comes across this kid who, he becomes attached to him, and the whole thing is about trying to keep him in a better family environment than the one that he was living in prior to this. And you get so invested in this because you like the relationship between this boy and his dog. The dog is very good here. The dog is very cute as well. I mean, it's a beagle puppy. Who doesn't love beagles? I mean, Snoopy for God's sakes. But the film is just really entertaining. It's a film that is very engaging. It's a film that really is well acted with these great actors involved, including Michael Moriarty, Scott Wilson, Ann Dowd, Rod Steiger's in here as well. I mean, it deals with real morale issues. You get a lot of emotional elements to it. It doesn't dumb down itself for the kids. It makes a solid piece of entertainment that doesn't feel like it's dumbing down the viewers at hand, but it makes for a very engaging film that still holds up after all these years. The sequels that came out afterwards, I won't say that they're great movies overall. I think, honestly, they're kind of pretty much the same movie over again. I think in the second one, it's basically the same thing. The abusive dog owner comes back and he wants his dog back again. And then the third film in the series is basically just the same thing. Just the same thing. It's just like, was there any reason for this to really become a trilogy, honestly? Personally, I didn't think so. I think it should have just been one film overall, but what do I know? The first film was a big success, so of course you got to make it into a trilogy. But I mean, then again, it's based off of a series of books that eventually did become more than one film. So again, I could see it on that front. But like I said before, the first movie I think really is the strongest one of the bunch. The other two films in the series, definitely not as good, but the first film still is very good. I recommend checking it out. Shiloh's a really good movie. So with that said, let us get to movies we can pretty much get through pretty quickly because I've not seen any single one of these four films we're going to talk about here, so we'll be brief on these ones. So let's go ahead and talk about the next film, A Chef in Love. So the story centers around this French opera singer who's also a chef that's actually living in Georgia. He owns a restaurant, and it shows life in Georgia at the beginning of the 20th century, including its short period of independence, the Democratic Republic of Georgia. And after the Bolshevik coup attempt in Georgia, the chef refuses to immigrate and endures the brutalities of this new regime. This comes from the country of Georgian, I should say. Is it Georgian or Georgia? I know this is dead end here, but no, Georgia. It's the country is Georgia, and was actually selected as the entry for the best foreign language film at the Oscars, and did get nominated for it, but it did not win. So I don't really know if it's any good or not, but came out this weekend. Might as well bring it up. So that's A Chef in Love. So let's go ahead and move on to the next film we have here, and that is A Brother's Kiss. So you have two brothers. One is an older brother named Lex, and his younger brother Mick, who live in Harlem. Mick is a policeman, and Lex spends youth years in reformatory because of injustice after he confronted the cop who tried to sodomize Mick on the street. He's living with his wife Debbie, trying to make ends meet and failing. And one day Lex calls Mick, and he has a problem. And I don't really know what else I could say about this one because I haven't seen it before. But this is based off of a play that this director did. Seth Zeev Rosenfeld is the writer and director of this. This is based off of his play. And he grew up in the same neighborhood as the actor Michael Rayner, who plays Mick in the film. And him and the actor who plays Lex, Nick Chinlin, were friends as children. But other than that, though, I don't know really too much about this. But it's got a good supporting cast to it. You know, John Leguizamo, Kathy Moriarty, Rosie Perez, Michael Rappaport, Marissa Tomei. A lot of notable names in here, but other than that, though, I don't really know too much more about this one. Could be good. I mean, it's got a lot of positive reviews, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which could mean that it's actually something pretty special, but I haven't seen it before. I've never heard anybody talk about it, so I don't really know for sure if it's any good or not. So, quick one on that one as well. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, and that is Flamenco. So, if you don't know what flamenco is, I know I certainly didn't before I knew about this movie, but it's an art form based on the various folkloric music traditions of southern Spain developed within the Gitano subculture as the result of Andalusia. I'm reading it off of Wikipedia, so I'm not getting this mixed up here, but it also has historical presence in Extremadura and Murcia. And this is basically a documentary of musical and dancing vignettes composed and photographed on a soundstage. And of course, you see Vittorio Sotoro, who did cinematography for The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, as well as The Last Emperor. He does the cinematography for this, and you just see a little bit of stuff there. I mean, it's mostly just people dancing, but I'm not gonna lie, the dancing overall is very, very good. Like, I didn't really have a whole interest in checking this out, honestly, but I kind of want to see more of these dances here. They're very unique. They almost feel like clog dance. It feels like clog dancing in a way, but this is probably a much more different kind of a different kind of clog dancing, of course, because because they're not using clogs, they're using high heels. The woman was using high heels in that clip I just showed you. But I really don't know too much about this stuff to make me want to see a whole lot of it, but I will say it definitely piques my curiosity, though. That little clip right there actually looked like it could be something pretty interesting. But other than that, though, that's Flamenco. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie we have here, Nothing Personal. Literally stopped it at one point, and then as soon as that happened, the whole thing took a huge turn. So that's why I put that back on. But as you can see, in 1975 Belfast, the Troubles are in full effect, with the Troubles being an ethno-nationalist conflict in Northern Ireland that lasted about 30 years from the 1960s all the way to 1998. So this thing was still going on when this movie came out. It's also known internationally as the Northern Ireland conflict, which is sometimes described as an irregular war or a war-level war, and a Protestant bar is bombed by Catholics. Several people are killed. Hours later, you have Protestant fighters, Kenny and Ginger, retaliate by killing a Catholic, starting a full-scale riot. Then a Catholic single father attempts to help the victims of the fighting, but finds himself on the wrong side of this divide. It escalates pretty quickly from where I stopped it at first, and then when I put it back on there. But it looks like a pretty intense film, and like I said, this was still going on when this movie was coming out, so it's very. It looks like it could be. It looks like a very intriguing film. I didn't really know too much about it before I looked it up, and my curiosity's kind of peaked on it. Maybe one day I'll check this one out, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you on that one. So that is Nothing Personal. Nothing personal to nothing personal. And with that said, I literally started it that way because I forgot to end it that way. But cheap joke right there. But with that said, that's going to wrap up this edition of Time About the Movies. When we come back next time around, we're heading into the summer of 1997. We've got the first week of May here. We've got Kurt Russell and Kathleen Quinlan in Breakdown. Mike Myers in Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. We have the fantasy adventure Warriors of Virtue, also Commandments, Children of the Revolution, Truth or Consequences, NM, and also Irma Vep. So 7 movies again to look at next time around. 7 movies again. So with that said, I'm tired, man. I gotta get out of here. So, with that said, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to see more on this channel and more of these episodes. So, with that said, thanks once again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.